Good morning, all. Pushed the wrong start button on the old video today, so that's all good. Great start to the
Good
end
start,
of the
mate.
season. Welcome all to the Rugby Vault Rugby Chat for the end of the New Zealand season, sort of, and pretty much the end of Test Rugby, sort of. Welcome, Jeff. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm really excited about our guest coming up, but I guess we can talk about that later on. But it's that time of the year, isn't it, where we just kick back and think, oh, okay, what do we do now? What's on this weekend? And thankfully, we've got the Dubai International Sevens to keep us occupied, us rugby nutters. But yeah, the season, the 15 season as we know it, is over. Obviously, there's competitions in the Northern Hemisphere, etc. But we'll get our appetite from sevens competitions now until Super Rugby kicks off in February.
Yeah, and the good thing is too. I'm just going to start this off in a complete segue. Natal Sharks 0, Cardiff Blues 35 in Durban. The Welsh team got their first ever victory in South Africa. What has happened to South Africa rugby for Cardiff to travel to Durban and win 35 zip?
At the end of the day, mate, it's what we said. Who cares? South Africa beat England. That's all that matters. And I think if we look at South Africa's performance, I think the Springbok supporters have probably got a bit of heart leading into the World Cup. South Africa's performed pretty well on this Northern Tour. In fact, they've performed very well. If you look at the number one, number two teams, Ireland, France, they lost to Ireland by 3, they lost to France by 4, very competitive games. And then to come out and absolutely smoke an England team who probably felt quite buoyed after drawing with the All Blacks the week before. South Africa came out and smoked them. So they're going to go to the beach. They're going to lie on that towel, as we always say, and there's going to be no rocks underneath that towel. And they'll be looking forward to next year for sure. So, hey, look, Natal, Cardiff, yeah, okay, nice, good win, Cardiff. But if I was a Box supporter, I wouldn't be too worried, Rabs.
Yeah, well, the thing is, though, after that England defeat, poor buggers, the question now is they're having a review in England. Is this the beginning of the end for one Mr. Eddie Jones and the introduction of one Mr. Razor Robinson in the England fold before the World Cup?
Possibly, and we've talked about Eddie Jones at length, haven't we? And we've always said that his specialty or his forte is coming in and fixing broken teams and getting them into a winning formula. But the problem with him, I think, with his style is that I think players get a little bit turned off after a little while, and his peak's probably around that 2 to 3 year period. And I think you're seeing that with England, is that he's probably done what he needs to do. And if England do decide that they want to move on, then is Scott Robertson, is he the man that's going to step in there? Is he the right man for the job, number one? But does he want the job? Does he want to stay around in New Zealand and maybe look for the All Blacks job after the World Cup? And so there's a lot of permutations there, and not only with England, but with Wales as well. There's talk that poor old Wayne Pivac's going to get the boot, and there's talk that Warren Gatland's going to take over before the World Cup. So who knows what's going on around the world? There's always talk too that the USA are trying to sign Eddie Jones into an 8-year deal. So interesting times for sure. But
Yeah,
I
well,
wouldn't
it
be
is
a
definitely.
supporter, put it that way.
Yeah, well, it is. And it's definitely musical chairs because with the Wayne Pivac scenario, 21 points up at home. This is what happened to New Zealand as well. The foot was taken off the throat, and they gave the Australians the sniff, and Australia got away with the escaped with some dignity, I suppose you could say, 39-34. But for a long time in that game, the Australians were still being quite woeful, but Wales, they just literally took the foot off the throat and let them back in. Your thoughts on that?
Wales. Yeah, I think Aussie have been really hard done by, and this is where, as I said, I really feel for Dave Rennie. I mean, the amount of injuries that team has carried. I think and again, off the top of my head, I meant to do a bit of research before I come on here, so I apologise in advance. But I think it's something like 26 top line players were unavailable for that last game. And if you the starting team versus Wales versus the starting team be the All Blacks when the All Blacks got out of jail, completely different team. So Rennie's had to really dig deep into their reserves, and we've always criticised Australia for their lack of depth. But I think if anything, it's uncovered some real gems there. And so I think Australia looking into the World Cup probably getting a little bit of heart out of that. And they had some yellow cards there as well. So there was long times in that game where they played with 14 or 13 men. And to be able to come back against Wales, a desperate Wales, mind you, who lost the week before to Georgia. They had a point to prove and they were on fire. So I think I'd far rather be an Australian supporter than a Welsh supporter today. That's for real.
Okay, and then the only other game of international significance, I suppose, from the weekend was that Northampton got up over Razor Robertson's Barbarians by 45-39. So they started off their little Barbarian tour in style with the win over the New Zealand 15. And then they couldn't beat three Gallagher Premiership teams in the Harlequins, Bath and Northampton.
I think that shows when you've got combinations, when you've got structure, and when you've got a genuine team culture, it doesn't really matter what players you put on the paper on a piece of paper. It really comes down to, as I said, just working together, understanding each other, etc. So, look, full credit to Scott Robertson for blending the Barbarians team into the unit that they are. They've had some couple of good wins, very good wins, especially one against the New Zealand A team. I just still can't get over that one. But it is hard, when you get a squad and you've only got a week and then you've got to try and formulate a simple game plan because you don't want to get too complex with it. And then to put them out on the park against some established teams, established combinations with different game plans, different game scenarios, etc. that they have in that team culture. I think that kind of explains that up and down performance that the Barbarians have had in their five or six games. I think they had a decent sort of run there, didn't they? But I think Scott Robertson's the man for that because the way he commands respect and the way that he can formulate a team culture is perfect for that Barbarians environment on those short tours. So again, he hasn't, his reputation hasn't been dented in any way, shape, or form.
No, and of course, Barbarians rugby being, let's have a bit of fun, throw the ball around. I mean, it was reflected in all the scores. So, but that there though, I think we nailed the results. Went our way. We said the Africans. We did say the Australians. And I think I'll have to go back and have a look at half of our recordings, but I'm sure I picked the Northampton team. I still can't think of the guy's name who coaches Northampton, but I think I went for Northampton over the Barbarians just for the hell of it. And so we've ended the season okay. On Monday, as I said, we went through those results last week. So that's it. So your overall thought and theory, who gets the gold medal for the Northern Tour finals?
Well, Ireland.
Oh, hang on. No, well, we'll start with the bronze. Who got the bronze medal? Who came third?
I think it's either going to be, if I had to say, I'd say it'd be South Africa. And I think while they had two losses, because I think Ireland and France, and I wouldn't say clearly 1 and 2, but they certainly deserved that 1 and 2 ranking. But they're clearly not the best teams in the world. As I said, if you had to put your house on it, you'd go with Ireland or you'd go with France. So clearly they had some good wins, but they weren't dominant wins, were they? And I think South Africa, really performed quite well. Close third, I think, would be the All Blacks. I think that, as I said, I can, I've sort of changed my opinion a bit around Fozzie and the coaching staff and how we're tracking. I think that, okay, cool, we've got a bit of a chance here. I think when we got the top 15 on the park and we got some consistency, we play some bloody good footy. It is very, very entertaining footy, but still very inconsistent. So that's why I haven't given us that bronze medal. I think we're a close fourth at the moment, with France at 2, Ireland at 1. So what it's done, this Northern tour has just opened up that World Cup like you wouldn't believe. I think it's probably the tightest World Cup we've seen to date. And to put a winner or pick a winner in there, good luck. Who do you think, Rose? Who do you think, mate?
I'd like to stick in bronze medal position, Georgia.
Yeah, true.
Mainly due to their victories over Italy and Wales. I mean, they've showed that pool with the Australians, with Portugal, Georgia, Wales. I mean, I think that's the new pool of death at next year's World Cup. I'd have to lean towards South Africa, I think, in second place. For their, they were consistent all the way through. Sure, they picked up the odd loss, but consistently, I thought they were good. And France, I'd have to stick with the French, taking out the gold medal for the Northern Tour. They pretty much wiped the slate from everyone they played. They've beaten everyone, and but can they keep it going into Rugby World Cup 23? It's a bit, I think it'll be a stretch. But and the All Blacks, I still think they were fourth or fifth, because there was still too much of this experimentation. But this is the time to do it. The Australians will be happy because they also had, as you pointed out, all those injuries. I mean, I think they had 4 or 5 Achilles injuries, which is unheard of. And you being, the health man here, to get that many, what would be causing that sort of injury in a group environment like that? And so have they got rid of their injuries and given these guys time to, come right? I mean, Hooper came home with a concussion. They've got now, 8-10 months to sort themselves out physically, whereas the All Blacks, we pretty much got through this whole tour without any injury per se, any major injury. So in the balance of things, from a coach's perspective, how does that work out?
Yeah, I think it comes down to we're not privy to what their training routine is like, etc. I'd say that Australia probably put more stress on their top line players than what the likes of the All Blacks have, because I think the All Blacks, as we talked about, have that depth. There's actually criticism that the All Blacks weren't playing their top line players enough, especially with that Japan game. That we came out for a 5-week break and we didn't play our top side, and whereas Australia, I think that they're having to play their top players because there's been so many injuries, or they haven't quite got the depth as well. And injuries like an Achilles or they're type of stress injuries. So it could be maybe just overtraining, overuse. It is a long season. We're into end of November. So these guys have been training on and off. Having said that, they're professional athletes and they're surrounded by professional medical team as well. So you'd hope that they're getting the best advice and that their health is in check and they're being monitored regularly. So it is hard to say just from the outside looking in as to why they're getting the injuries or the type of injuries they're getting. Who knows? Maybe they need to get new boots. I don't know.
Yeah,
well, sponsor.
Yeah, it is. It's just it was just something that got me. It was just like, did the All Blacks have the players in cotton wool a bit? We don't want to play them too much, etc., like that. So that's where my sort of my thought and theory is. So I don't know. It's
I just genuinely don't think we know who our best players are. Who I mean, that's for me. We still, Will Jordan's got to come back. So do we put him then at fullback? What do we do with Bodie? Is Geordie Barrett our best 12? Is Rico suited to centre, or is he our best winger? Now you got TJ Perenara back, but that, unfortunately for him, I'd say he's going to be ruled out with injury. But then you look at the likes of, Sam Cane's injured. When he comes back, what happens then? Dalton Papali'i's been a real revelation. We've always known how good he is. So what do you do there? Do you put Dalton then at 6? I mean, is Scott Barrett our 6? Is Shannon Frizzell our 6? So Samson, to me, Samasoni Taukeiahe is our best hooker, but they're using him off the bench. So I still think that, when you talk about are we playing our top players, who are our top players? What is our top 15? Do we actually have that established yet? And the answer, in my opinion, is no. And so we have to keep then rotating players to see what our best combinations are. We're still not there.
That's true. And so do you think moving into Super Rugby and maybe NPC, because at least we'll have the NPC before the World Cup, is there room for a breakout player that's not even in the fold? Or do you think the 30 whatever players they pick for France are going to come from the 30 we saw in the Northern Tour?
Definitely room for a breakout player or two. I mean, those selectors, I'm sure, would be open to anybody. I mean, you look at right back in our era, mate, when the first World Cup came around, who knew of Michael Jones in 1987? So that was the first of those players that really broke out of World Cup. Jonah was another one. I mean, he just burst on the scene, didn't he? So, I mean, if you've got players like that who are stepping up and they're putting their hand up, then you've got to give them that opportunity. And they could be the making or breaking of a World Cup. These genuine impact players. Who are they? I really don't know. Is there going to be anyone? We don't know. But again,
Sean Stevenson.
Yeah, sure. Look, I mean, I'm a big fan. I'm a huge fan of Sean Stevenson, but he didn't even make that New Zealand 15 to start with. So the selection panel really got him that low down on their list that he only really got in because of an unavailability or an injury. And then when he got in, he started and he played so bloody well. So to me, I'm just like, what's going on? Whatever happened? Did we ever work out what happened to Peter Gus Suakula? 10 minutes as an all scores a try and can't even make the New Zealand 15. I mean, again, we're not privy to the videos. We're not privy to the coaches' chats, etc. We don't know what's going on. For us on the outside, we're just going, what's going on?
Yeah, well, I mean, we all question why did they drop the group earlier in the season. But moving on, I mean, we could talk all day about the ABs in next year. We've still got to wrap up this year. So the nominations for New Zealand Rugby Awards came out yesterday. And, was I a happy camper when I saw who the men's team of the year nominations are. And the men's team's nomination, the Adidas National Men's Team of the Year, is between the Crusaders, Wellington. What do they hold? Oh, yeah, that's right. NPC champions, Ranfurly Shield champions, South Canterbury, back-to-back Meads Cup champions. And let's just throw it in there. Ngāti Pro East Coast, 10 years in the wilderness. They get up, they win the Lahore Cup, and now they're up nominated for the Team of the Year. How good?
How good. Yeah, very, very, very cool. I mean, if you want my opinion on rankings there, I'd put the Crusaders probably at 4th. They're bloody good outfit. I mean, just absolutely professional, fantastic. We all sort of kind of expected them to win the Super Rugby Championship. They're always there or thereabouts. I think in the first round they finished second to the Blues. So congratulations to them, but they're not Team of the Year. In third, I'd put Ngāti Pro East Coast, and purely for the fact that they played off in the second tier championship there. No disrespect to their performance. Second, I'd put South Canterbury. That second 2 years in a row winning that second tier championship, that Heartland Championship, what a great achievement. But clearly, I think Wellington have proven themselves to be that team of the year. Because who picked that at the beginning of the year? Who picked Wellington as Ranfurly Shield champions and NPC champions, apart from a rugby nutter called Rabs down in Wellington there? You're the only one, mate. But what a and the type of rugby they played, they just got better and better and better and better as they went through that season. So for me, definitely outstanding performance from Wellington. Well done, Rabs. You finally got something to
Oh,
cheer.
I know. And as you saw here in one of our previous episodes, we had the privilege of having the loggerwood right here on my lap in the studio. So
Cool.
yeah, it was a great moment. So hey, people, I know there are people watching this. So if you have any thoughts of who you thought was team of the year or who was unlucky to be the men's team of the year, throw it in the chat. We can't forget the women, of course. The team of the years there are Canterbury, Chiefs Manawa, and Hawke's Bay. Now, I know it's National Team of the Year, but should that not also include a team called the Black Ferns?
Yeah, well, I think that they'd be in the same pool as International Team of the Year, wouldn't they? So it'd be the Black Ferns, the All Blacks, the Sevens. So I would assume, is there a category, an International Team of the Year?
No,
Must be.
I'm literally just going to have a quick look back here at the official listing that came out, and there isn't. We've got plenty of players and stuff like that, and referees and age grade, but no international team. Oops, what's going on there? Go away, you. Sorry, something just popped up on my screen. Get rid of that. No, we've got Black Ferns Player of the Year, Black Ferns Sevens, All Blacks Player, National Men's Team. Yeah, no. So.
No. Huh, okay. Oh, that's interesting. I always thought there was an international category there where, the All Blacks, the Black Ferns, Sevens, both Sevens, men's and women's would be involved, or New Zealand under 20s. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, they have in the past. The All Blacks have always been there. I think the Black Ferns have won it before. So it will be interesting to see who's who, and who gets what. Player of the years as we move on. In the Dwayne Monkley, your buddy's medal, we've got Bryn Gatlin from North Harbour, Imoni Anarawa from Bay of Plenty, and Peter Lakai from Wellington. Who's your choice to pick up that medal?
Oh, look, I'm biased, mate, towards Bryn, but being as a 10, as a director of the ship, and as a captain as well, there's a lot of pressure on his shoulders. But not only that, he's a goal kicker. So when you're a 10, when you're a goal kicker and you're captain, you're carrying so much of the burden, and he's just grown and grown. He's one that I think could be. He wouldn't put himself out of any favours by wearing a All Black jersey at all. He wouldn't let anybody down. So I rate him highly, and I think that, in my opinion, that would be my go-to there.
Okay. And the far sorry, I apologise for my pronunciation. You probably could say it better than me. But for the ladies' medal of the year, we've got Luca Connor, Bay of Plenty, Maya Joseph from Otago, and Charmaine Smith from Northland. I would lean to Charmaine Smith.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand your reasonings. Coming back from giving birth and being a mum, and her comeback there. But I'd go with Luca Connor. I think that she's been outstanding this year, taking nothing away from the other two, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it's always really cool to give these people the rewards that they deserve, and so it'll be interesting to see who gets them on the night.
Super Rugby Player of the Year, Adi Savia, Will Jordan, or where'd that go? I've lost it. Stephen Perifetta from the Blues. So there's only one player I can go for, and that's going to be Adi. So what do you reckon?
Yeah, and I think the way they judge it too is they just focus on that Super Rugby competition, so they don't take into account All Blacks or Wellington, etc. But having said that, I mean, you can't really go past what Artie's done for the Hurricanes and that Super Rugby competition. he's a one-man wrecking machine, isn't he?
Oh, it certainly is. So otherwise, I mean, it's been a great year, and I mean, your overall thought, NPC, great to see it back. Be great to see them play one-on-one again. Be great to see 3 divisions again. We're moving into all the 7 stuff, club rugby, and all that. Bit disappointed. I don't think they've got a national 7s comp on this year. Have they? You would know more than
no,
no,
they haven't. It's I don't know what's going on there. How on earth is Clark Laidlaw supposed to look at up and coming talent if he hasn't got a national 7s competition? It's very disappointing.
Well, maybe we could pull someone in and have a look, because coming up in about 30 seconds, we have a gentleman who, and I will show you this now, he likes scoring tries. He likes getting gold medals. He likes playing for the Bay of Plenty, and that's against Poverty Bay. So that's back in the good old days of the NPC. And then he played for the evil Empire of the North. But, yeah, what can I say? But welcome, Craig De Goldi, West Coast superstar, Greymouth boy, and many happy returns for the 7th of December, sir.
Oh, thanks, Kevin. Thanks for the intro. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Goldie. Good to see you, mate.
Thanks for having me on.
Good,
Yeah.
So, we've brought you on because we've got the Dubai Sevens on, and we can't get a better person to chat about this than yourself. You've got plenty of experience in the in the, what do you call it, arena of sevens, and we need to know what is going on with New Zealand sevens at the moment. Is there a problem?
I mean, like yourself, like we're on the outside and we're only guessing about what's happening at camp, and you know what looks quite clear is they're not fit enough. You know, that's really obvious, and I know we'll probably talk about how things were 20 years ago, but you know what I can see is they're not fit enough. Like the I guess the space between the teams is really minute, because you know if you lose to Samoa 24-0 and then come back and you lose to Australia, I think it was like 24-17, and then they go on to win it. Australia, you know, just beating France in extra time in the last seconds, all those types of things. So there's not a massive gap, but you know, you keep going like that and you keep just losing, you know, trying to qualify for the Olympics or win a World Series gets just harder and harder every tournament. So they've got to just change something probably really small, really quickly. And I'm sure Clark's doing his best to make that happen. But I mean, that sevens, you've got 14 minutes to try and come from behind. You know, you see the All Blacks last week trying to defend that lead, and England come back in 8 minutes. It's, you know, it's just really minute adjustments that they probably need to make, and fitness is a big one, and that's coming back from talking to a couple of guys in camp, not seeing them at the club sevens. You know, if you don't make the tour, you should be hungry to play sevens, and they won't be allowed to. They won't be allowed to come and play club sevens. And there was no selectors, you know, not at the Northland one, and there was probably 4 guys that could jump on a plane and put a black jersey on easily. So.
Yeah, we found the same thing too, Goldie. Sorry, Raz. We found the same thing too, mate. We had the North Harbour Club sevens, and you know, there's no North Harbour selector there. You know, there's no national championship. So where are the next crop supposed to come from? So Clark's really has got his hands tied, really, hasn't he? He's really got to go to his existing player base. And you know, I mean, so then where's the depth? Where's the next level coming through? Which is really, really hard. So
you have to be playing sevens, to be good at it. You're right.
Absolutely. And you hit it on the head, that fitness. So I want to put it back to you. You know, how important is fitness? So we always talked about that 3-legged stool. So you develop your physical skills, your mental skills, your physical fitness. and all of those have to be so evenly developed. Otherwise, that stool will tip over. So let's go back, because I know we're going to segue into it. You talked about 20 years ago. What set Titch apart from other coaches, in my opinion, was his attitude towards fitness and nutrition in particular as well, but certainly fitness. There was no second chances there. If you weren't fit, you're out. So that ruthless nature of being fit and driving the fitness, do you think that someone else should be driving that, or is that Clark's domain there, or should the players be taking ownership? I mean, how important is physical fitness in your opinion? And obviously you've talked about it, but in this current environment?
Probably sounds like the players have got too much opinion and too much control, because we just did what we were told, and you gain knowledge and confidence through suffering, and when you're working really hard as a team, you become a lot closer. But by the time you come to stand in that tunnel, you've got that self-belief, and there's no doubt that you've worked harder than anyone else before you run out. Especially wearing that black jersey, you shouldn't be there. You shouldn't be on the plane if you haven't emptied the tank at training. I think looking back on what we used to do is we used to get excited and bloody nervous about going to camp. It was a lot of excitement. You were anxious. You didn't know who Titch was going to bring in to try and keep us honest. You get a Sione Lawaki turn up to training and you're like, oh man, here we go. We had to earn our jersey every camp. So Titch would always bring someone in that's faster, stronger. We do the fitness testing, but then luckily we'd been there mentally and knew that he was going to try and break this new guy at training. So whenever there was a new guy, Titch would try and just absolutely break him. So he would go away and raise his work rate, get fitter, know where he has to be at, or not come back at all. And that was pretty easy if he didn't come back. But not having that camp environment, that it's a job. You get less enthusiastic about turning up to work every day rather than coming to a camp environment going, right, here we go. We've got to earn our jersey back again. And that's the mentality we had. Even though you're a contracted player, you had to win your jersey before you jumped on the plane. And that is not happening. Talking to some guys that are a bit closer than you and I, guys aren't training through that camp before they go to tournament. They'll jump on the plane hoping they're going to be right. And some young fellas that are training all through camp and they don't get a look in, that creates a bit of division. I remember if you had a sore shoulder and Titch was picking the team that day, he'd get Chris Marsoi running straight at you for 15 tackles to make sure that shoulder's going to be right, and then he'd pick the team. So, or your hammy was a bit tight, he'd get you doing this length of the field sprints, so he rip it off the bone, so he knows he's got the confidence to take you away, and you're going to be fit and you're going to do the job.
So that gives you that mental skills, that mental toughness as well. And I talk about that all the time, is that, I think Titch with his trainings, he wasn't really always just testing your physical fitness, was it? He was testing who's mentally tough, who's putting one step in front of the other, who wants the jersey, pretty much, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally. And the strength of Titch was you never knew how many you're doing, and you never know when training was going to end. So with that, the same what they do in the army, you might go for a run and then you'll loop round past the camp and you think, oh, that's us. And then you'll see the guys go, oh, sweet, we're finished. And then they make you go again and run for another 5 hours. And Titch would do the same. And so by the time we come to a tournament, the referee told us when we could start and stop, and we only had 14 minutes. So it was a walk in the park, But with Titch, we just, we were just mentally tuned of, we had that self-belief of we just thought we couldn't go anymore, and he'd make us do 10 more. And we're like, oh, yeah, hey, we got it.
Yeah. And I know too that nutrition was such a big thing, because you are what you eat. And again, Titch was just so ahead of his time as a coach, because I think most sevens coaches around the world would coach catch pass, they'd coach the kick, they'd coach the breakdown, they'd give you a bit of a game plan and structure. But Titch took it that next step, because next level fitness, but next level nutrition. And some of the stories that we hear around Titch, you would have been part of them, of him going into the hotels or the chefs and telling them what he thought of their meals he was serving his players. But there was one particular story too, and I want you to maybe elaborate on it, and if you know anything about it, of sending a player home because he caught him at McDonald's.
I don't think we went that far, but I think we all got caught out at McDonald's one time, and because Titch had actually gone through, he'd gone through customs, checked through, so then the boys all snuck in and grabbed some Maccas, and I was on watch, and I was just looking the wrong way, and of course he walked around the corner, and I was just like, oh God. I said nowhere to go, and Titch walked in and just caught everyone out. So we got thrashed as soon as we turned up to where we were going. And, like we'd sneak a bit here and there, but at the end of the day, he was only doing what was best for us. And, we've been, Hong Kong Sevens. We played Croatia on the Friday. We used to have one game on the Friday. Had this massive buffet lunch, and all of us were super heavy. And then we went out and we just beat Croatia in like the last seconds. And just from that moment, we used to, Rushy always had the saying that, if you go pig hunting, hungry dogs hunt better. So we just ate light, ate the right things between games, because you've got to warm up, cool down. And that's nutritionally, there's a lot to manage there, and same with your body, and mentally just switching on and switching off. So there's a lot that goes on that you don't see on the fields that they have to manage as well.
So who are the leaders in your squad? Sorry to hog. You go, Rabs.
I'll just quickly jump in there. The Croatian team would have been full of Kiwis anyway, wouldn't they have been back in the day?
Yeah, mainly counties boys. Blair Ehrlich was there.
Was Brano playing then?
Who's that?
Yeah.
Frano, would have been probably after.
No, it was after Frano. Yeah.
Brett Craze. It would have been after. Brendan Winslow, these guys.
Mainly Kiwis knew the pattern, knew what we were going to do in our face, and a combination of eating poorly. First game of the tournament, you saw New Zealand lose 24-0 to Samoa, and that just comes down to preparation. And they're only little things, but it can cost you in the first game of the tournament.
Absolutely, and that's where sevens is so vital. Where if you drop a pass, or something or other, you're down 7-0, and you've got to switch onto it because it's a 14-minute game. So mentally, you've just got to. And this is the hard part about sevens, isn't it? Is you don't just study for a week for 180-minute game like you do in 15s, and you try and work out a bit of a game plan. You've got to actually work out game plans on the go. You don't even know who you got, maybe especially on the second day, who you've got in a quarterfinal, semi-final, final. So again, you've got to switch into game plans. You've got to be mentally skilled, mentally alert. But you hit it on the head there. It's that nutrition in between games, isn't it? Knowing when you can actually have a decent meal, or just little snacks, and then what snacks to have as well. So who's in control of that? Was Titch in control of that in your days? Was that, or did you actually have a nutritionist that travelled with you?
No, we had a really small budget and a really small, only 10 of us used to go on tour, 10 players, and then the physio, manager, and coach. So we're a small squad of 13, and we just Titch managed that. So Jenny Pierce come in for a start, and then we got another couple of nutritionists. But it was mainly Titch with his knowledge and just guiding us and keeping us fueled all the way through. I like just going back to what you were saying about there's so much going on, and coaching recently, and you're managing rolling subs. A squad of 14, you can only play 12. Who's been on, who hasn't, what the team's doing. Are they, should we be just making them tackle us more to try and keep them in, and then we'll go wide, or are we just going to move the ball wide and create space? So there's just, different game plans for every single team.
Absolutely. And the breakdown's completely different in sevens too, isn't it? And that was a big forte of yours. That was a big strength of yours. So maybe can you give us an idea of switching between sevens and 15s, and what you found was the biggest difference? The hardest part between switching between sevens and 15s, and in particular, I guess that breakdown how you approached it in sevens compared to 15s.
Yeah, like huge, two different games. I mean, I played open side flanker in 15, so I was, always at that first breakdown and ruck, but a lot more bodies, and it's probably why a lot of the 15s and the All Blacks don't want to come back to sevens, because you're so exposed, and it's guys have tried, and you can get made to look really silly really quickly, because it's only six. Full field, you can get shown up, whereas in 15s, you've got a tighter group of mates, tighter defence structure. So, but yeah, breakdown. I mean, yeah, the core was the same. You're a lot more isolated in sevens, so you had a better chance of getting the ball, whereas in 15s, there's a lot more bodies coming quicker, and you've only got a real short moment to have a crack at that ball.
Yeah.
But then he says, because we've got to give the ladies a good shout out, because they're going to be in Dubai as well. You have, players like Ruby Tui and Sarah Hirani, who seem to transition quite easily between sevens and 15s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like what I loved about sevens is I got to run with the ball, and they get a lot of that that open space running when they're doing kick returns. They're on the end of the forwards drawing everyone in, and they've got a bit of space to move. But as an open side flanker, man, I remember when I was at Auckland, like defence training, like pick and go against Case Muse, like that's not fun. So when you go to play sevens, and I've got a league background, I just love that running with the ball again and that space. And, especially when we played Fiji, and teams like Japan, you'd be a ball runner a lot more than you would if you were playing, a team like Samoa, whereas we're trying to move the ball away from them, avoid their confrontation. In Argentina as well, they're really hungry around the ruck, so we want to move them around a lot more rather than running into them and them having a crack at that ball.
Yes, and that's video analysis again, just identifying what team you're playing and what style they're playing as well, isn't it? Hey, Goldi, I want to go back a bit, and you mentioned there your league days, and obviously Rabs is really interested to hear about your days on the West Coast, etc. So, can you give me an idea as to maybe your youth, your growing up, league, union, and then what eventually your pathway into sevens, how that happened? How did Titch discover you?
Yeah, well, it was harder to get discovered these days, like you say, with, Clark's probably looking at those NPC guys, as a pool, and then everyone's saying, well, get rid of the older guys, and, there's replace them with the younger guys coming through. But, man, it must be so hard for him to, unless you're going to these club tournaments, which there's only a handful of. Like we used to have the Topiri Sevens, Taradale Sevens, the Mount Sevens. They have big prizes. Like Topiri, you'd go to Bangkok, for the winner and play in the Bangkok Sevens. So they were, obviously, we'd have a good core of sevens depth around New Zealand, and a big pool. And Titch was at all of those tournaments. He would go to Taradale, would go to the Mount. Growing up in Greymouth, I played for Greymouth Marist, and we went to the New Zealand Marist Sevens at Athletic Park. And, we got knocked out, and I ended up playing for Christchurch Marist, and we, made the final. And that was, but yeah, big league background. Played rugby for Coast on Saturday, and I'd go and play league for my club on Sunday. It was just, it was all family clubs and mates, and that's what, that core of, went to Nongataha after Greymouth, and then that I've just been with family clubs all the way through, and then going to the New Zealand Sevens team. That was another real close family. So always sort of had that culture going through, but definitely not an easy journey to get to that black jersey. I got told at 14 I was never going to play rugby again because I had a back operation and had a stress fracture, and but just slowly built my strength back up and got back into it, and just had that opportunity with Titch, but it took me 3 camps. We used to have 50-man camps. They'd try and he'd pick a squad of say 16 guys out of that 50, and it took me 3 years to make that squad of 16. But by the time I got to that point, man, I was fitter and stronger and just knew exactly what he wanted. So just, whereas some players will just go away and just say, man, it's too tough, or, it's just,
Because you were part of, sorry, mate, you go, Rabs.
Right. So, what is it about the West Coast? Craig De Goldi, Greymouth. Ruby Tui, Greymouth. West Coast, I'm now famous for picking them to win the Meads Cup this year, only to see them go 0-8. They should have won it. They won the Seven Shield. They beat Nelson. They beat Marlborough. You played with them back in the day, 96, 97. Your thoughts quickly on how the Heartland Championship is progressing at the moment. Are we still seeing, teams like West Coast, sure they went down by a few points this year. But, and by the way, Mr. Gilshanen says g'day. But, yeah, I tell you, he's a crazy man, that one. But the thing is, West Coast were unlucky. They were unlucky in the Lahore Cup final a couple of years ago against South Canterbury. South Canterbury have moved on and won back-to-back Meads Cup since. The 0-8 this year by West Coast by far wasn't a reflection on their season. But we still see those two top teams, Wanganui and South Canterbury, at the top over the last few years. Is this time for, how can I put it, for NZR to turn around and bring back Division 3, Division 2 and move away from that Heartland amateur status?
Yeah, well, it always gave you an incentive, like, playing in all 3 divisions. I played for West Coast, 3rd, Bay of Plenty in 2nd, and Auckland in 1st. It gave you an incentive to try and get up into that next division. And as far as building and getting players to come to the union, there's got to be job incentives for them. There's got to, whereas the West Coast at the moment is probably the worst it's been as far as, getting mines reopened and resource consents for, there was just, when we used to beat Mid-Canterbury, we were a really strong team. Even when I was playing league, we were the top South Island club team for 2 years in a row. And we hadn't been that strong since the 70s, mid-70s. But employment was strong. Like the bush was really strong, fishing was strong, coal mining was really strong. So there was a lot of labor. You had work if you wanted it, so you could bring guys over. And there's not that draw card anymore, and things are getting more and more expensive. So more and more people are moving away. Wanganui is close to Wellington. You're probably getting players shooting up on the weekends, being able to play. Not so many of the Canterbury boys are coming over and wanting to play for Coast or the club teams like they used to. So, but I think it was always a good concept because I've played in it. I haven't played in the Heartland. I might have a game for Coast a few years ago, actually. But yeah, I reckon it's a good concept and a good idea.
Yeah, well, the thing is, as well as I live, breathe, and eat all of that stuff and the history of the game in Heartland. So, I mean, it has its place, but of course, teams swings and roundabouts. So hopefully next year the Coast boys it'll be their turn. But I mean, South Canterbury, Wanganui have been consistent. But it's just the boys. What I'm trying to get out is you were saying about the league. They're still doing that today. I mean, this year I've seen half of the boys running out on Sunday playing for West Coast Rugby League. So, it's good to see that some things don't change and at least they don't get penalised now for playing the evil game. So, But what I do want to talk about, though, is over the next few minutes is the Dubai Sevens this weekend. And I'll bring this up. Here is the teams that have been announced this morning. What's your take on the men on the left and the ladies on the right, Craig? So, yeah.
Yeah, like I say, you know, there's a mixture of, like, talking about the boys. You know, Leroy Carter, he really excites me. He's bringing something to the game that has been missing. You know, he's got a bit of mongrel, and yeah, he's just a really strong. I think he's just going to get better and better. You know, and I don't think there's much in it for them to get back up to that level of where they need to be. But they've got a lot of experienced players in there. Like Tangata, he's shown some real glimpses of being a world-class player. So we'll hope to see a bit more of that of him this weekend. But yeah,
he's obviously been released from the Blues, this year. I mean, I was surprised to see him there because he got named in the Blues, didn't he?
Yeah, and you know, I always, you know, think back of when we used to play and you know how much teams used to fear us, and it wasn't just because, you know, we used to win. We just had a lot of mongrel about us, and I think that's been missing for a little bit. And you know, I know there's a lot more spotlight on them than there used to be us, but you know, just that fitness and mongrel was the two key ingredients that they could probably inject a bit more into their game.
I want to ask you about Brady Rush, obviously, the famous Eric Rush's son. Have you had a bit to do with Brady, and you know, what's his skills that he brings to this team?
Yeah, Rob was playing for Mid Northern, you know, the last 2 weekends, Rob Rush, and it was just so good to see him out there. Like, he had Blues camp the next day, but still out there doing it for his club, and you know, because he just wanted to be there, wanted to play, which is missing. But really cool to see that ethic coming through from Eric, of course, and he was just worried about him getting bloody injured. He wasn't putting any pressure on him. But yeah, Brady, you know, he brings a lot of excitement, and he's just loving being in that environment, and just seeing him, you know, getting a go would be good, because, you know, the likes of, you know, Kurt Baker, he is jumping on the plane, not 100% and not at his best, and that just doesn't quite sit well with me. If you're fit enough to train, you're fit enough to play, but if you're not fit enough to train, you shouldn't be there.
Absolutely. So can I? Because I mean, I know we're stretched for time, and I could talk to you for bloody hours, Goldi. But there is a question there, and you talked about, you know, obviously back in the day, and I hate to be one of those guys back in our day, but you were part of the most successful New Zealand Sevens, or most successful international Sevens team of all time. I think you went 47 matches undefeated between, can't even remember the years, but you were part of that squad. What made that squad so legendary, and who were, I guess everybody was a leader in that team, but who were the outstanding leaders, the outstanding players that you played with in that time, and what set you guys apart from every other team in that era?
Yeah, if you look at the size of us, we were probably smaller than most teams, but we just had that work ethic, and we were really selfless. So it wasn't about any one player. You know, it didn't matter who scored the tries. Like, we'd give tries away all day. It didn't matter who scored it, as long as we scored it. And we were just a really tight bunch. So I think, you know, it wasn't a coincidence why we were so successful. It just come down to, you know, the only team that was going to beat us was ourselves, because, you know, we, like I said, you know, by the time we stepped in that tunnel at every game, we'd done what we needed to do, and we were just mongrel dogs, just hungry, and we just wanted more and more and more. I think it's just that togetherness that we had, and the way we worked hard for each other. You know, like, we'd be in situations, there'd be, you know, 30,000 people against 10 of us, and that just naturally brings you tighter together. And and that mongrel of come and get us, So
Yeah.
who
was the best player you played with, and who was your toughest opponent? If you could name some.
I mean, Rushy was such a great leader. What he brought back from the All Blacks, to us, and he'd have that quiet word with us when we were playing in Hong Kong about the boys up in the South Stand watching us, and he just led by example. And Titch, he never sat Rushy out of a fitness test. No matter how old he got, and he got well into his 30s. I think he might have played at 40 within the black jersey. So Titch just gave him no shortcuts, and he just stood up, and he was by far our greatest leader and big contributor to our culture. I mean, personally, you don't have a lot of individual battles in sevens because you just can't afford to. But there were some great times you find yourself out on the wing against the Dalasau of Unambaka, and you make that tackle. It's one of the best feelings in the world. But we never had. There were some great forwards like Billy Satala, for Fiji. We had some great battles over the years. Had some good fights over the years as well, with some teams.
Well, I wish we could get that footage up of a couple of scraps of yours, mate. But
it just come down to passion. It was just passion,
Yeah.
not anything malicious, or they just love their country so much, and so did we. And it was just in the moment. We're all good mates. We played together afterwards, and we've had a laugh about it.
Yeah.
So it was just all between the whistle and
I do have one more question, and sorry, Rabs, for hogging the bloody questions here, mate. But I want to sort of move into sort of life after rugby, and it's one of the things that we talk about. So we've created the Health and Sports Network, and I've been doing some interviews, one-on-one interviews with sports people, seeing what makes them tick, and delving into their mind and souls, etc. But one of the things is life after rugby and looking after yourself, your mental health as well. So you and I, we're on the same page. We've chatted quite a bit over the last couple of years, and we're on the same page around a healthy lifestyle, a holistic lifestyle, etc. So can you maybe explain to our viewers, I guess you're still really fit. You still played some sevens only a couple of weeks back. You've looked after yourself. Obviously, you and your wife, you live this lifestyle where you're eating off the land, etc. And you're bringing up your kids in that sort of lifestyle as well. How important to you is nutrition? How important to you is fitness? And how important to you is just maintaining that mental health as well?
Yeah, once you finish, you go from being getting a lot of attention in your life to no one caring about you as far as what you've been up to, or and that's a massive transition for some people. Like, you all of a sudden you're really important, and then next minute no one cares. So you've really got to get through that, and there's the only way, it's really hard to be positive when there's a lot of things going on in your life. Might be a health situation or a bad relationship, or you're having a tough time at work. But if you can stay neutral, because negativity works 100% of the time, and it's hard to be positive. But if you can just simplify things, which is just stop saying stupid shit out loud, for example, because that just amplifies it. It's not ignoring it, but just don't give it any strength. So just if you got nothing to say, just don't say it, and that really helps. I know it's only a simple tip, but it's certainly saying it out loud amplifies it, and then you thinking it. So just one thought of it at a time, and just really just try and stay neutral. That really helps.
It was one of the themes that I found too, just talking to like-minded people like yourself as well, was that euphoria of running out, as you said, in front of 30, 40,000 people. And then you're playing a sport that you love, and you're with your mates, and all of a sudden it's over. And then it's life after rugby. How do we cope? So for a lot of people, it's very, very difficult. And you've made that transition seem so smooth. So it's really good to tap into your mind and get an idea as to what makes you tick and how you've managed to do that. So what then drove you then from, obviously being a South Island country boy, etc., to moving up into the far north? Now here's your plug, far north as a real estate agent. What drove that move?
I used to holiday up here, and what a great place to bring up the kids in the Bay of Islands. So, my daughter's sailing on Sundays now, and, there's a great rugby club, Kerikeri Rugby Club. But, it's like when the summer comes, it's like everyone's on holiday, and it's just a really cool place to be. And we've got beautiful 20 acres, freshwater spring, native bush. We live off grid. Big veggie garden, and it's just really, really cool place to bring up the kids, and we're just loving it. And as far as real estate, getting into real estate, I did my diploma of agriculture while I was playing rugby in Japan. I did my worm can at the rugby field. If you can imagine the farming infrastructure in a city. I did a bit of study up there, and I thought, I wanted to get back into farming, but this naturally selling dairy farms and beef farms and lifestyle blocks, it's a good way to get back on the land and get back in touch with farmers.
Yeah, bloody brilliant. What a lifestyle you're leading up there, mate. And stop posting all those cool videos on social media as well. You make me very, very, very jealous. So, hey, look, mate, I think I'll invite Kevin back in because I think our time might be up. And it's been such a great chat. Great connecting with you again. Goldi, one last question. Where's your coaching future? What are you doing around sevens? Is any opportunities up there, maybe provincial sevens at a later date or anything like that?
Yeah, I just started to get back into club coaching this year, just helping out the Kerry Sevens boys. But yourself, like this time of year and getting boys back involved in a club team, everyone's scraping for numbers and pinching players from different clubs. And but the kids are getting a little bit older now. I mean, that's such a big part of my life. I haven't been coaching for the last 5 years, but really want to get back into it now. And there's a couple of opportunities. I got asked to go to India this year to coach the India under 19 and under 20 teams, just for the Asia Pacific. But it was just too short notice. And I'm sort of contracted with work, so I'll look at that next year. Just what a great experience for the family to get over and experience a different culture and help out a smaller nation. That'd be quite exciting.
That is actually quite hilarious because I am friends with Nasser Hussain from India.
Yeah, that's who contacted me.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay.
10 years ago.
Well,
10 years ago, he was the captain of India Sevens who came out before the Commonwealth Games that I coached down at the Institute with Murray Megstead, and I took that camp, and then Nasser now is the CEO, so he naturally just... Yeah.
Classic. That's
good.
Good.
I do really want to get him on because, hey, you're a CEO of a sport in a country of 1 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to find out how he's going to grow the sport in India. And, of course, I've just won Division 3 South in Asia. Right. And I saw your name popping up going, like. I'm going, why is he liking India? So you've answered the question. So, and of course, Jeff, he's been involved with Sri Lanka and the Philippines and all that sort of thing. So there must be some coin up there in Asia, eh?
Oh, it wouldn't be about the coin. It's just about, what a cool experience for the kids and the family just for a couple of months to get up and get immersed in that. And, we went to India about 15 years ago and just before the kids, Sarah and I, and it was quite, we've been vegetarian since then, and it was a big lifestyle change for us since we went over there, and that'd be cool just to get the kids in amongst that.
That's the beauty about sevens too, is it is a leveler, isn't it? Because you don't need a lot of money for sevens. It's a smaller budget, less players, and all you need is basically a field with some goalposts, and you can run your own sevens tournament. And as Kevin and I have talked about quite often, is that the thing with sevens is if you can get that core fitness and nutrition and your skills, you got your Kenyas, you got your USA, you got your Fijis, and your Argent, or whoever, they can all compete with the top tier nations. Whereas in 15s, it's very select, isn't it? Sevens is a great leveler.
Well, funny you should say that because I know we're almost finished, but I do want to get Craig's opinion on the games this weekend. bit of a shocker of a pool. The All Blacks or the Black Sevens are in. So we got Argentina up first, and that's actually at 10 to 8 New Zealand time on Friday night. They're playing the Argentinians, who are going really well.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some team called Fiji. We play at 11 o'clock. And then Uruguay, who actually played really well in Hong Kong. Tough battles ahead for the boys. So how do you think they're going to go against Argentina, Fiji, and Uruguay in pool play? And will we make the cup quarters?
Well, I can't even believe you're saying that, but like being in Hong Kong was the first time we never made a quarterfinal in Hong Kong, and it could be looking that way again if they don't, because they would have had a massive turnaround from Hong Kong to when they get to Dubai. So I'm expecting a different New Zealand team to run out. So yeah, but you look at that pool, Argentina, New Zealand. Man, it's just so hard to pick. You'd like to think they're going to beat Uruguay, but I mean, a year ago in Dubai, Spain beat Fiji. So it's just so hard to pick.
Yeah. So between Hong Kong and Dubai, though, this is another quick question before we do end the show, and this is great. As Jeff said, we could talk for days. What is the difference when you go from somewhere like Hong Kong, where it's always going to end up raining at some point, to the desert?
Mm-hmm.
The conditions, how does the body react to that?
It is a long flight. It's a long flight to both countries. I mean, they're both hot. They call it the sand pit in Dubai, but you're staying. That was my first trip for New Zealand in '98. And you're staying at a 5-star hotel. It's just everything's laid on in Dubai. They do it really, really well. And the facilities are great. And it's just such a cool atmosphere at night when the sun goes down, and that's when the party starts. And it's just a really cool atmosphere in the desert, in the stadium. And it just feels like in the middle of nowhere. But it's just, the guys adjust. You just mentally adjust. It's just another hotel, another bus, you're on the little mini bus to another ground, another changing room. But it's a really cool atmosphere in Dubai, though. It's one of my favorite tournaments.
Okay. So any last words from you, Jeff? And do you have any messages for all your great fans down on the coast, the might of red and white?
I just want to say thanks, mate. You're a bloody legend, and as we said, we probably should have got you on earlier for an hour chat. We could talk for days. There's so many questions I want to ask you around, obviously back in the day and some tournaments, etc., and life after rugby. But we've covered a hell of a lot, and I really appreciate you coming on, Craig, and giving up your time, and wish you all the best for number one, your real estate career up north, and it's a great plug for you coming on. We'll try and spread this far and wide, mate, so hopefully you get a few phone calls. But number two, your life after rugby and your coaching career, and hopefully you can end up coaching an international side overseas somewhere. So
thanks, guys. Really appreciate you having me on, and all the best with your podcast and growing it. And I think it's a really cool concept. As far as being a coaster, like I'm born and bred in Greymouth, and I always reminded people around the world, wherever I was, like whenever they'd ask me where I come from, or at New Zealand Embassy in Hong Kong or whatever, I always proudly say I'm a coaster. And there's I got a lot of family back there, and it's always home. So hello to everyone back on the coast.
Well, it's awesome having you on, and hey, we can always do a part 2 catch up anyway, and bring it to our viewers at a later date, because there is hundreds of things we want to talk about. I mean, who's that guy, Mark, that you might know, that everyone's been giving me grief about being a better player? I don't know, but anyhow, we'll end the show now. We'll get you to stay on for a minute there, Craig, and until next Tuesday, we'll see you all again. See you later.
Thanks, guys.